To Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news show. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Thursday, January 27th, 2022, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you're gonna see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the Happening Out television network and Hotspots magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
That's right. I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, FayWhat? Yeah, you don't have to adjust your TVs. I am not Al Ferguson with a wig and a great tan. No, I am FayWhat? I threw him in the back of my car because I wanted to hang out with these boys. I didn't know that these boys were working today on Queer News Tonight. So when I found out that it was Gregg Shapiro, it was Tai, and it was John Hayden, and it was Scott Galvin, I was like, that's it. Al, you're out of here. FayWhat is in. And here we are. So let's welcome our first anchor. He's Gregg Shapiro. Yes, he is. He's a 1999 inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 2 short story collections and 6 books of poetry, including his latest, Fear of Muses, an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ plus and mainstream publications and websites. His screensaver movie review column can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area Reporter, and RottenTomatoes.com. Good evening, Gregg. Welcome.
Happy National Chocolate Cake Day.
Yum, I hate chocolate cake.
Me too.
But I love you, so
Thank
it's okay.
You. Thank you. Let's welcome anchor Dr. Tai Houser.
Make sure you get that doctor in. He gets mad.
Yeah.
A doctor. He is an associate professor of English and Humanities at Broward College. Additionally, he teaches for extended periods of time at international colleges in China, India, Spain, and Bolivia. Good evening, Tai.
Good evening, Gregg. We can add Brazil to that list because starting on Monday, I will be teaching remotely for Brazil.
Wow.
Obrigado.
Let's welcome anchor Scott Galvin. He's the executive director of Safe Schools South Florida, providing a safe space for LGBTQ plus youth. A member of the North Miami City Council, the longest-serving LGBTQ plus legislator in the state of Florida, he sits on the board of directors for AIDS Healthcare Foundation and volunteers with the Florida LGBTQ Democratic Caucus. Beam me up, Scotty.
If I only had $1 for every time I've heard that.
I'm sure.
Thank you. Let's welcome anchor John Hayden. John's been a journalist for 27 years. And now he works for several South Florida outlets, including South Florida Gay News, covering politics, arts, and the bar scene, mostly for the latest info on happy hours. He spent much of his career covering the stupidity and scandals of Hollywood and interviewed nearly every big name in TV, movies, and music. John considers the time he had to sit and interview Shirley MacLaine after she yelled at him as the scariest 4 minutes of his life. Good evening, John.
Good evening. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points for the queer news for today, Thursday, January 27th, which is also International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
All right, well, let's begin by queering up politics. Gay black senator Shevrin Jones tells lawmakers, no book made me gay. Don't say gay bill. Don't say gay bill. Sorry, watch this.
But I do want to address just one thing that one of the speakers that she made mention of, and Senator Polsky touched on it, and it was pertaining to calling out homophobia. As a gay man, to sit here in committee, to hear that there was no book that I read that brought me to who I am. And even your children, I don't care what you may try to do to think that you are protecting them, that the one thing that you are obligated to do is do like my mother and my father did, and that is to love them for who they are. So I'm not going to speak about the politics of this, because all of that is going to go out the window eventually. My ask is that as you all speak, just realize that there are individuals who hear you and might be in the shoe of someone that your words are hurtful towards. And it's not me, because I'll be fine. I'm a grown man and I can take care of myself, and my colleagues love me as such. But I want to just put it out there to you all that as you go and you advocate, please do advocate for your children. I support that. But be careful in how you advocate to make sure you're not harming anyone. My dad always taught my brothers and I that when you lead and even when you speak, lead and speak with love. Thank you.
Queer News Tonight has already been reporting on the Florida House bill that would stop teachers from being able to discuss anything LGBTQ+. Florida State Senator Shevrin Jones said during Tuesday's Educational Committee hearing, quote, "As a gay man, to sit here in committee, to hear that, there was no book that I read that brought me to who I am. And even your children, I don't care what you may try to do to think that you are protecting them. The one thing that you are obligated to do, like my father and mother did, is to love them for who they are," end quote. Jones' remarks came in response to the claims of several parents at the hearing, like Karen Moran, who was with a group called Best SOS America. On Tuesday, Moran read from a book titled "It Feels Good to Be Yourself," a book about gender identity, which she claimed there are 112 copies of at the Palm Beach County libraries. According to Newsweek, their search found 0 copies in the library system. Moran told the committee, quote, "It's causing gender confusion with our kids, and it should not be in our libraries, and we should not be funding this, and we should get all these books out," end quote. Chasten Buttigieg also has something to say about it. Watch this.
Republican-led committee in the Florida State House just advanced a bill that would ban most discussions of sexuality and gender identity in schools, arguing that it preserves parental rights. Now, critics call it the Don't Say Gay bill, and our next guest says it will kill kids. Joining us now is author and educator Chasten Buttigieg. He is married to Pete Buttigieg, the Biden administration's Secretary of Transportation. I really appreciate you being with us this morning. You say this bill will kill kids. How?
Yeah. I mean, that's a staggering number. So the tweet I put out mentioned a survey by the Trevor Project in which 42% of LGBTQ kids who were safe or comfortable enough to take the survey, said that they've seriously considered taking their own life. And we should be approaching that number with urgency and with compassion and care, wondering what we're doing, what kind of country we're building, or in Florida, what kind of state are you building, where you're essentially pushing kids back into the closet. You're saying, we can't talk about you. We can't even talk about your families. And, you know, as a kid who grew up for 18 years being told you don't belong, something about you is wrong, sometimes you take that trauma to heart. And unfortunately, there are a lot of kids in this country who do the worst because we tell them something about you is twisted and you don't belong here. Sometimes teachers, especially for me, were my safe place. Teachers want to be that place where kids feel comfortable learning, and we should be making sure that school is a place where kids feel safe to learn. And I certainly appreciated having teachers that made me feel that way when I was younger. I don't really think this is about parents' rights. Parents' rights to do what? To tell LGBTQ kids that they don't belong, to push LGBTQ families away and into the closet.
Florida, I love you, but you are embarrassing me. Seriously.
Well, compassion is not a Republican value. I mean, let's just be honest, it's not. But the Republicans do know what they're doing. They know that hearing about it, talking about it is what brought us to this point through the 90s when we started having television shows and seeing ourselves reflected on television. And now they're like, oh, just keep the kids in the closet as long as we possibly can so that they either won't be themselves or they'll just kill themselves. The people who are pushing this are loathsome.
And Safe Schools South Florida, this is what we do.
This is what you do,
yeah,
yeah,
we
Scott.
work with teachers, we work with GSAs, students and gay straight alliances. This would absolutely decimate everything that's being done in a classroom. We're planning right now, speaking of Shevrin Jones, Senator Jones, Earlier today, we're talking with his staff and with United Teachers of Dade and the Broward Teachers Union. Safe Schools South Florida is going to host a rally/protest about this bill early next week. Anything that we can do to call attention to this, it is in every school, every grade level, in every classroom and teacher's lounge across the state of Florida. It's horrid.
You know, Scott, we were talking about this yesterday on Queer News Tonight, on It's Happening Out. Sorry, me and John were on It's Happening Out yesterday. And it's great that you're on today, Scott, because I was wondering about after-school programs. Like, would those things be affected as well? Would those be eliminated completely with this?
Absolutely. You would no longer be allowed to have a Gay Straight Alliance, a GSA, and if they did come up with a creative title for it, they'd no longer be able to talk about anything in the LGBTQ universe. I run into principals at individual schools who try to throw this edict down within their school, but our school districts protect them, protects the students at those schools. This would change that. There will be no more protection for schools or faculty members.
This is heartbreaking. Ty, what were you going to say?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I think the more pressing matter here is that she doesn't know the difference between 0 and 112. So I think we need to address that issue first before we start worrying about keeping our kids safe.
And her name was Karen.
Karen Moron.
You know, this breaks my heart 100% because I think of me as a child, all right? I was conflicted and I didn't know where to go. And my parents, I couldn't talk to them, you know? I hardly talk to them now, let's put it that way, you know? So it was one of those things where I had that safe teacher, like Scott saying, you know, I had that teacher that I can go to. Of course, she was a theater teacher. But anyway, all the gays were there. But I had that safe teacher. And if I couldn't talk to her, I think I would have exploded, you know, and there were moments where I thought about taking my own life as a teenager. This is what you're doing to these children, you know, this is all the children in Florida, you know, that are LGBTQ. God, this is just awful how much they will be affected by this stupid ass bill.
Absolutely. Now we clear up gay culture. Holocaust remembrance, queer and Nazi pink triangle defiant symbols of gay rights. Each year, Holocaust Memorial Day allows the world to come together in mourning for the millions of people who lost their lives at the hands of the Nazis. It's also a vital, timely reminder of just how easily hatred can warp a society. Hear that, Republicans? When Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party seized power in Germany in July 1933, the dictatorship moved to persecute and murder minority groups, including Jews, LGBTQ+ people, the Romani people, and political prisoners. Beginning in 1933, the Nazis built a network of concentration camps throughout Germany where undesirable groups were detained, including Jewish people and gay men. In Nazi concentration camps, a pink triangle was used to identify some gay men. Benno Gammerl, a lecturer in queer history at Goldsmiths, University of London, who describes the pink triangle as a, quote, Nazi invention, says it is not quite clear why the Nazis used the color pink for this purpose. In concentration camps, LGBTQ+ inmates were subjected to starvation and forced labor, as well as facing discrimination from both SS guards and fellow inmates. And I would say that for further research on the subject, I would recommend the book The Men with the Pink Triangle by Heinz Heger, and the movie version of Martin Sherman's play, Bent.
Yeah, I think it's really important for the LGBT community to stand alongside our Jewish brothers and sisters, because too often I think we live in an LGBTQ bubble when it comes to issues, and we don't reach across the aisle, so to speak, on immigration, on all these other issues. So if we want people to stand up for us, with us, I think it's important that we stand up with them in that time of need too.
And I was first exposed to the symbol of the pink triangle in the early 80s when we were really reclaiming at the beginning of Gay Lib, and by ACT UP, which was fighting for anyone to pay attention to the AIDS crisis. So it's always meant something for me, and then I later learned shortly thereafter about where it came from. But go see the movie Great Freedom. It's coming out, it's getting Oscar buzz, and please have a look at it. I know foreign films are hard because we want to watch, but we have to read, but it is so worth your time.
So if you're not concerned about the Florida bill that's going to wipe out talking about LGBTQ issues, then you should at least be concerned about it in that that's one step in erasing the Holocaust history that our students need to be remembering as well. So those two things are tied together inherently, and it's impossible to separate them.
Isn't that crazy that people still think, some insane, asinine people think that the Holocaust never happened? And then they go as far as to think that like LGBTQ was never held down to this degree. You know, we can't forget our history. This is what happened before. And like Tai said, we can so easily get back to that. You know, we're not far from being branded for being LGBTQ, you know? Right. It's scary times that we're in.
Yeah.
Next, we'll queer up gay culture. Creators of term LatinX say to stop erasing them. Woke whites didn't make up the term. Despite what conservative circles are claiming, the term Latinx wasn't created by liberal white elites. The campaign to police and ban one word has scored numerous wins in recent weeks. A flurry of editorials condemning the term and a ban on its use in official communications by the civil rights group League of United Latin American Citizens. In the early 2000s, Queer Latinx began using the term on message boards and blogs. The trend accelerated after the 2016 massacre of 49 mostly queer Latinx people at Pulse, the Orlando nightclub. It built on the use of the machismo-resisting Latinos, or Latino-Latina, which pushed back against the Spanish language's male-centric gendering. Latinx sought to cast an even wider net. For some Latinos, particularly older ones, Latinx sounds weird. They find it hard to pronounce the X in English, though Spanish pronunciation of Latin and X can combine into a smooth, watch this white boy do it, Latin X.
Yeah.
Which rhymes with Dos Equis, the Mexican beer.
And that's how you're going to remember it, because it rhymes with Dos Equis,
yes.
right?
That's exactly it.
So what do you boys think?
So the Miami Herald wrote an editorial, actually, and the Miami Herald is very left-leaning anymore. They wrote an editorial against the use of Latinx a couple of, I don't know, maybe a month ago. And I thought that was interesting that a left-leaning organization was sort of taking up that position because stereotypically they wouldn't. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward.
And they were embracing it, they were supporting it, or they were going against it?
They were against the use of Latinx.
Okay.
For a lot of the things that were just said in that story.
I get it. I mean,
you know,
representation matters. We say
Right.
that a million times, right? So if someone, look, I'm Latina. Nobody called me and said, oh yeah, we're gonna change all you. Se llaman ahora LatinX. Okay, escribe eso. LatinX. Nobody called me and asked me, you know? And so then I was just like one day like, no, you're part of Latinx. You have to say that, you know? And you know, we never wanna get anybody mad in our community, right? So I just went along with it, you know? But I really, like, it's like, okay, it's kind of like our LGBTQIA. If you wanna keep on adding letters and numbers, I'm gonna keep on saying it because I want everybody to feel included at the end of the day.
And to me, I'm sorry if I'm jumping in on somebody, but to me it also comes back to the differences in opinion between the traditional pride flag and the newer pride
and the progressive flag.
The progressive flag. You know, some people, like me, are old school, and it's harder to get us to change our habits verbally and things we practice than it is the younger folks, like Faye. So
he called me younger. I love
Younger.
it. See, again, now you know why I put Al in the trunk of the car. What were you going to say, Greg?
It's just part of evolution. It's part of
Evolution.
Language and culture evolving, and get with it or get lost.
Well, the new progressive flag came out a couple of years ago in Pennsylvania, I believe. I'm sorry if I missed it, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right? And so, and it's been a fight ever since. Here we are a couple of years later, past COVID and everything, and there's still some people that just refuse to use the new progressive flag and want to use the Baker flag because of its history, because of its intent. But like Greg said, we evolve. We evolve as a community. We add letters. We add, you know, we added black, brown, and trans into our flag. And to me, it felt right. It felt like the right thing to do in the evolution of our community. Do you guys agree or disagree?
No, you're absolutely right.
Evolution, yeah.
Did you have an issue with changing the flag?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Cool. I'm surprised. All right. Good. Yeah. Right. You wave your flag proudly.
There you go. And now let's queer up the USA. The impact on LGBTQ and Supreme Court's Stephen Breyer's retirement. President Joe Biden promised during the 2020 presidential campaign, and he reiterated it today, that he would nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court, which would mark an historic first for the U.S. Currently, the top expected contenders for the position are Ketanji Brown Jackson, Leandra Kruger, and J. Michelle Childs. And it's worth noting that Ms. Jackson is from Miami, Miami Palmetto Senior High School. Once Justice Breyer confirms his plans to retire from the Supreme Court, Senate Democrats are expected to move quickly to confirm his replacement. President Biden's nominee will need the support of all 50 Democratic senators. And although Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema have helped block key components of the Biden legislative agenda, they have generally deferred to the president when it comes to judicial nominations and are expected to support the confirmation.
What'll really be interesting is when Anita Hill shows up and serves everyone a Diet Coke.
Start serving pie, Ty.
Yeah.
Really?
Does anybody have Michelle Obama on speed dial?
Oh, that would be
I wish I did. Oh, love me some Michelle. Okay, we're not talking about her in that way. I'm sorry. Will this nominee get the support of the 50 Democratic senators, guys?
It's a great question.
That's why I'm sitting in this chair.
I think my question would be, especially to you, Scott, because you do politics, you think. Do you think that any Republicans will come across? I mean, most of them have voted at some point in the last year for some of the nominations to the cabinet. Are there any chances that, I don't know how he's the moderate now, but Mitt Romney or someone else might cross over and say, okay?
Yeah, I don't think it's very likely. You never say never, but Senator Romney and others have not come across on anything major. This will be major, and even though it won't upset the balance of power, it won't make us any more liberal than conservative on the court. This is somebody who's going to serve for perhaps decades to come, and I just don't think that the Republicans are going to take their foot off the gas pedal.
The face question is important, though, because it's so frustrating as someone who sits on the left of things, that if this were a Republican president with a Republican House, there would be no questions.
Yep.
They would have passed every policy that the president put through. But we Democrats can't seem to get our heads out of our ass long enough to agree on something.
Yeah.
And to Biden's credit, he's been great about appointing judges to federal courts, including men and women of color with diverse legal backgrounds. So
he has, but
he should be praised.
Will this help our community? When RBG passed away, people were freaking out, freaking out. I mean, I know that Trump was still in power at that time, but if the woman from Miami gets the spot, Scott, will we be in a better place?
Yeah, if any of those three contenders, or even somebody whose name really wasn't mentioned yet, if anybody on the Democratic/liberal side who gets the spot will be better off, because we've slid so far. Who would have guessed President Trump would get 3 nominations to the Supreme Court? I mean, there are so many implications for the future of democracy in this country with what happens with the Supreme Court, and fingers are crossed that the senators Manchin and Sinema do the right thing.
Fingers crossed, for sure. All right, John.
When we move on and queer up religion, the Pope makes history again as he says parents must support their gay children. Pope Francis said on Wednesday, January 26th, that parents of gay children should not condemn them, but offer them support. He spoke in unscripted comments at his weekly audience in reference to difficulties that parents can face in raising offspring. Francis said those issues include, quote, parents who see different sexual orientations in their children and how to handle this, how to accompany their children and not hide behind an attitude of condemnation, end quote, and amen. He has previously said that gays have a right to be accepted by their families as children and siblings. He has also said that while the church cannot accept same-sex marriage, it can support civil union laws aimed at giving gay partners joint rights in areas of pensions, health care, and inheritance issues. We'll wait and see how long it takes for the Vatican's doctrinal office to counter these statements, as they've done so many times with his accepting statements in the past.
Well, this Pope is dope. That is until he changes his mind. We never know. But for now.
It's really interesting from a power standpoint, as I look at these things, to see how far somebody's willing to take a cause up to the line and not go past that line, perhaps on his way out of office. I was hoping that President Barack Obama would pardon everybody who's in American prison for possession of marijuana or some sort of marijuana charge. I was hoping he'd really pushed that button on his way out. We don't know how long Pope Francis will continue to be head of the Catholic Church, but it's interesting to see him keep creeping closer and closer.
But you say creeping closer and closer, and in a lot of ways I agree. I mean, he's doing or saying positive things, but ultimately all he's saying is, you're human too.
That's basically it.
Right? He's just affirming human rights.
He's basically telling you to love your children.
Yeah, he's not taking any kind of radical stance.
Right.
Well, and that was my next comment. Like, is that enough for us? You know, like, part of me is kind of like, why are you throwing crumbs at me? You know, where he's like, we can't support same-sex marriage, but we still love you. You know, like, is that enough for us? I mean, I don't, I want the full meal. Why are you just giving me crumbs?
That's for the Catholic followers to decide. It's not, is it enough for us? I'm Methodist. It's, is it enough for the Catholics? Because that's their leader. And if they continue to think that, that things are great for everybody and that he's pushing too far, then, that's their decision to make, whether or not I agree with it.
And Catholics who always say, oh, you can't pick and choose. Well, who's the cafeteria Catholic now?
Cafeteria Catholic. But you know what, John? The reality is that there's a lot of older Latinos that, live and die by whatever the Pope says, and they won't even know anything about the new Pope. And he comes into power and it's like, whatever he says is gold, and that's what I'm going to live my life by. So, in that same breath as I'm like, screw you with, just giving me crumbs, I'm also like, well, we can also, we need it. You sit on a very high platform. You're closer to God than a lot of us. And people listen to your words, so I mean.
He's not sitting any closer to you than I am, Faye.
He's got a much cooler chair than you do, though.
He definitely does, and cooler shoes, which I'm mad about.
All right, well, I'll just say I'm too pooped to pope. So let's report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ+ religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
This is Orlando Gonzalez. I'm the Executive Director of Safeguarding American Values for Everyone, also known as SAVE, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Yes, it is, Orlandito. We love you. We finished tonight's queer news headlines with what we call LGBTQ+ flash news.
LGBTQ+ flash news. LGBTQ+ NCAA facilitator resigns over trans rollback. An NCAA facilitator has resigned in protest of the governing organization's weak new trans inclusion guidelines. Dr. Dorian Ria Debussy, who served as a volunteer in a program that helped train Division III schools to become more LGBTQ+ inclusive, shared their resignation letter on Monday via the nonprofit sports advocacy organization Athlete Ally. The chief catalyst for the letter was last week's announcement from the NCAA Board of Governors that the transgender organization policy had been updated, requiring trans student athletes to provide documentation of their testosterone levels, quote, at the beginning of their season, end quote, with a second documentation 6 months later, and another, quote, 4 weeks before champion selections, end quote. Debussy wrote that they are, quote, deeply troubled by what appears to be a devolving level of active, effective, committed, and equitable support for gender-diverse student athletes within the NCAA's leadership. As a non-binary trans feminine person, I can no longer, in good conscience, maintain my affiliation with the NCAA. 2 words, test everyone.
Yes, because a lot of this ties into PEDs, PED use in steroids and things like that. But at the end of the day, students aren't going to pretend to be trans so they can win a championship and then show everybody their ring for the rest of their life and say, boy, I really stuck it to the gays by pretending to be trans. You're in a fantasy world.
And it'll be interesting to keep our eyes on what happens at the U.S. Olympic level or the worldwide Olympic level, because what we're doing in our colleges right now will affect who qualifies to be on future Olympic teams. And we've got other countries that may not have as progressive thought when it comes to this issue.
NCAA, we're a little mad at you, as you can tell. We are. So you know how you want to make it better? Okay, hire a trans person to take that NCAA facilitator spot, and then we'll talk.
So the thing with the NCAA is they forget that in their name is the key to solving this problem.
AA?
Well, that's too. Collegiate. Right. They have colleges and universities. They have scholars across the world that they can sit down with and rely on to have this discussion and make these policies. Yet they're not doing it. It's always the idiot down the street. LGBTQ plus flash news. Trans athlete sued Tennessee for blocking him from male sports. Luke Esquivel, a 14-year-old transgendered boy from Tennessee, along with his parents and the ACLU, is suing Tennessee for its state law preventing anyone from participating in a sport that matches their preferred gender identity. Luke said, quote, "I'm not usually an angry person, but it made me really angry," end quote. Luke has played golf with his father, Mario, since 6th grade and in middle school, while he still presented as a girl. He competed on the girls' team. But Tennessee state law does not allow the transgendered 14-year-old freshman to try out and play with other boys at his high school in a Knoxville suburb. Tennessee is one of 10 states, 9 of them in 2021, that have enacted bans on transgender students participating in publicly funded sports in the gender categories that align with their identities. Most of these states ban only transgender girls and women from playing sports on the girls' and women's teams. Get it together, Tennessee.
This story inflames my already sensitive athletic allergies.
These arguments just show the glaring ignorance in the argument of the bigots.
And to me, again, from a sports standpoint, folks are angry that trans females are being able to compete on the same level and perhaps do better. They don't seem to be as angry about maybe a trans male who would be competing on a collegiate level and perhaps not doing as well. It's, again, a double standard.
Folks at home, you heard the story, right? The sport? Golf! It's golf, people! Are you freaking kidding me, Tennessee? That's all I got.
There we go. Well, on LGBTQ Flash News, let's talk about the Biden White House releasing new trans federal prison policies. The Biden administration has restored guidelines requiring federal prisons to consider the safety of transgender people when deciding where to house them, a policy the Trump administration rescinded in 2018. The Bureau of Prisons, BOP, has reissued its transgender offender manual, which once again includes the Obama-era policy. Christy Brashear's chief of public affairs for the agency confirmed in a statement. Under Trump, transgender people in federal prisons were housed based only on their sex assigned at birth. Biden's policy builds off the Obama-era guidance and goes a step further, requiring prison staff to use a transgender person's lived name and pronouns. BOP said in a statement, quote, "After reviewing our policy regarding transgender inmates, we've made several updates to meet the community standard of medical and mental health care, appropriately manage and support the offenders, and meet legal requirements as determined by case law, statutes, and federal regulations," unquote.
What do you think, Scott?
Well, you know, we're sort of touching on a lot of the same things here tonight. I feel it's tough because you want to stand for the rights of the person who's the offender, but you don't want to protect their safety. And that's something that once the prison doors are closed and the lights go down at night, that's something that isn't as easily protected as it was for the BOP to just write that statement. I'm torn because I don't want to see somebody killed in prison over their identity.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's just like Scott said, that's basic safety. That's just a basic human need that somebody needs and deserves. I watch Oz.
Orange is the New Black. I had this conversation with people that I was hanging out with this afternoon, and it's this pattern, right? It's where Biden has to undo what Trump did to undo what Obama did. It's just, we got to get over that and start moving forward.
Okay, but there's a lot of crap that Trump did that we're still cleaning up, Ty. You know, that's why people are like, oh, he's been in there a year. You know, now it's he's digressing. He's going back. He's not helping us. He has 4 years of crap to clean up.
Exactly.
And a pandemic. Dude's busy.
Dear President Biden, oh, I love saying that. Thank you for restoring guidelines your predecessor enjoyed rescinding.
To echo Ty's comments, it just serves to remind us our rights, our basic rights that we take for granted, are up for vote every 4 years. Every 4 years, because the next person can come in and they'll just, with a stroke of a pen, erase what Biden did to undo what Trump did to undo what Obama did. It's insane.
Yeah.
Now, LGBTQ plus flash news, a court rules against gyms with women-only workout spaces. LGBTQ plus advocates are applauding a ruling by the Connecticut Supreme Court that says gyms with women-only exercise areas are in violation of a state anti-discrimination law. The unanimous decision overturned a ruling from a lower court after 2 men filed complaints about the women-only areas at Stratford's Edge Fitness Club and Bloomfield's Club Fitness. The gyms argue that there is an implied exception to the state's anti-discrimination law for gender privacy, and that allows them to keep certain areas for women only. They said that gyms, unlike other businesses, are male-dominated and need spaces just for women. Other arguments included giving women the right to a workout space that shields them from male harassment.
Okay, first, hold on, John. I know that this story was supposed to be in Flash News, but I'd love to just talk about this. Sure. All right, let's talk about this openly. I know that I'm the only girl on the panel, but all you boys have girls that are friends of yours and are, close allies, etc. Do you think that this story is right or wrong?
I'm not a woman, and I'm not really going to weigh in. The women that I've known have always felt vulnerable or threatened, especially when you're in an area. I don't care if you're clothed, but there's less clothing. Let's face it, you're in workout clothes, and often they're tight. I can't really speak to it, but I'll just say from my standpoint, I think I understand where the women are coming from.
Well, I've got hot friends. No one hits at me.
You're welcome.
Let's just say, you're welcome, right? Let's just say I don't even know where the gym is, all right? Okay. But my friends are hot because they go to the gym, right? And they say that they can't get a good workout in because they're being, just like guys are coming up to them and giving them comments and asking them out and stuff like that. So they'd like to have a women's only gym. You guys have your bathhouses that we're not allowed into. I wish lesbians were looser like gay men, because we'd be having girl bathhouses, but that's not the case. So why not give us a space that is just ours?
Yeah. But haven't there already been women's workout world, right? Wasn't that was a women's only gym? So they have existed. It's not a new concept, but the fact that the gym, the mixed gender gym, is going to have a separate section. I've never been to a gym, so I have to.
I'm going to take this very nuanced argument because I actually think I'm in support of this decision. And the reason is I'm totally for women-only gyms. If that's going to be a thing, I think that is easily supportable. But if you have a co-ed gym and you provide female-only space, you're protecting male toxic masculinity. You're telling men, you don't have to change your behavior. Women are safe over here. So they're fair game when you're on the floor.
You can be all crazy over here, or if they come into your territory, wild out. No, you're right.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And I think women should be more vocal, and they should be more aggressive with calling that stuff out.
Pepper spray.
And from my standpoint, and maybe a little bit different, once you walk through that, and I go to the gym, and I have chose my little small mom and pop gym because a lot of the national chains, it's a meat market. People are in there just to meet each other. But like the prison story we just talked about, I mean, the theoretical standard of policy is one thing. once you close the door to the prison, once the person walks into the gym, it's really difficult for them to call it out when they're sitting there trying to, do a rep on the weight bench and some guy saunters up and says, "Hey baby, how you doing?" Yeah, that
would it be the same if the roles were reversed, or not reversed? You boys, if you were at a gym working out and a guy was constantly hitting on you.
If I hit on a guy at my gym,
to the back room and we
give
each other.
No, but and honestly, if I'm openly gay. Everybody knows that. I'm a city commissioner, so some people in the gym know who I am. I can tell how uncomfortable people who work out near me, guys who work out near me, get, because, well, I must be trying to get with them. So if I choose anybody I strike up in conversation, I usually don't initiate, because it's the same sort of thing that they're
Got it.
made to feel uncomfortable.
Got it. Well, girls out there, I have a trick for you, okay? I'm from New York, so subways, were my thing, and guys would always try to talk to me. So I would put the earphones on, not connected to anything, okay? The bottom part was just in my pocket. Except one time when it was out there hanging, and they're like, "Oh, you're not listening to anything." Oops. But it's a good trick.
I've had it out there hanging on the subway as well.
Oh, boy. Well, that is today's news for the LGBTQ+ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ+ evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups of which you're a member. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your friends and your family.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ+ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ+ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, FayWhat?
Yes, girl.
See if you get out back on Monday. Make sure you watch the FayWhat show Monday mornings at 9 a.m. with me, yours truly, FayWhat. And on behalf of these incredible LGBTQ+ reporters, the reporters and anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Dr. Tai Houser, Gregg Shapiro, Scott Galvin, and John Hayden. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. Love you. Good night.
Good night.
LGBTQ+ news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth